Hi everyone, and welcome to ECON 333. This semester I will be the instructor for the course. My name is Thomas. My last name is French, so if you want to pronounce it correctly, the closest thing to it would be a VGA cable, VGA. In French, you would say VGA. So the smoothest way to say it is actually to say VGA fast. Here's my email address, and in this course, I will be accompanied by three TAs, Garam, Minoru, and Ismail. We will cover a bunch of statistical concepts, so you're supposed to have gone through Econ 232 already. I know for some of you, this course might date far back, so I will do a review of the main stuff I need everybody to know to follow the course. The main topic of this course will be econometrics. Roughly speaking, if I had to define econometrics, I would say it is stats applied to econ or econ problems. Economics studies very specific problems, and some statistical tools are not able to answer some economic questions in an accurate way. Hence, some economists have gone from statistics to economics and have developed new statistical tools in order to be as accurate as possible when tackling these questions. Is the course difficult? I don't think the course is difficult as long as you stay up to date. And this is the biggest challenge. I know a lot of you guys have other courses to go through. You have assignments, papers to read maybe. This course is a 300 level course. It will not be the easiest in terms of technicalities, and maybe not all of you are familiar or are comfortable with statistics. After all, you are doing economics. But if you stay up to date, read the lecture notes, come to lectures, or watch the videos at least for the first 2 weeks of the semester, you should be okay. As soon as there is something you don't understand, you should come to me or to the TAs. You can contact us on Canvas or using our email addresses or during office hours. The main issue about the course, I would say, is the fact that we cover a lot of content. It is not something I can necessarily choose. As a 300 level course, we are expected, instructors at SFU are expected to teach a certain amount of content. So I won't be able to cover less than what I'm going to cover in the course. One thing that's going to be particularly important is every week builds on the content of the previous week. Since I'm going to start with a review of the basic statistical concepts I need you to know for the rest of the course, make sure you follow and make sure you understand what's going on during the first 2 weeks of the semester. Otherwise, you will have a hard time to follow and you're going to accumulate concepts that you don't understand and that you will have a very hard time to catch up on later. So, a piece of advice from me, don't wait until the midterm exam to study. Now, I know that a lot of you might want to consider having tutors. Personally, I would not recommend it. First of all, a lot of the things that you're going to learn in this course will be helpful for your future labor career. Many modern day economists are expected, maybe even sometimes required, to have some statistical knowledge. This is what could make a difference when you're bargaining for your wage or when you're bargaining for a job. So that would be the first reason. The second reason is, I know that many students tend to go to tutors without even asking questions to TAs and the instructor myself. We are the ones grading you and the ones making the exams. So you should ask us first about anything, since we will tell you exactly what we expect from you for the midterm, the final, or the assignments. If you still don't click with us, maybe the way we explain is too complicated, or maybe you have a hard time understanding us, and I hope that you will tell us about that, maybe then you can hire a tutor. But again, I would not recommend it. We are paid to help you, so you do not need to pay anybody else to help you. The objective of the course is to understand how to use data to answer economic questions. We will go through hypothesis tests, estimation, prediction. These are statistical concepts, but we will study them in the context of answering economic questions. A potential hypothesis test could be, is there an actual difference between the average wage of men versus the average wage of women in a particular industry? This is economically relevant because it will affect the supply of workers in that specific industry. Estimation could be about estimating this gender gap if there is a gender gap. How big is the difference, if there is any? And finally, prediction could be something like, if I have that many years of schooling and that many years of experience, how much should I expect to make in my future job? Second, you will get your hands on a statistical software in order to apply the learned methods. I will use one of the most widely used statistical software, R, happens to be free and happens to be required or at least expected in many, many jobs. Finally, I hope that you will acquire some habits when handling projects involving data. You might have to deal with data in some other courses, maybe a 400 level course. And getting the habits of always having a systematic approach will help you go through these data, help you analyze the data, and help you solve some potential problems. So, how is the course going to work? First of all, I will upload weekly lecture notes on Canvas. They will be in the PDF format, like the slides that you are looking at right now on the screen. I will also upload weekly problem sets along with their solutions, and these problem sets will be covered by the TAs during tutorials. I will require you to complete 5 assignments in this course. You will have to complete them in a very specific format. I will post RMD files, so it will be a1.rmd, this is the extension of the file, that can be opened in RStudio, and I will explain to you what RStudio is. Then I will ask you to manipulate them and to answer the questions directly on them. There will be a button for you to turn this RMD file into a PDF file. Once the PDF file is compiled, you will have to upload it on Canvas in each assignment section by a specific deadline. I will give lectures in person, except for the first 2 weeks of the semester, or maybe more, depending on what the university is telling us to do. So, for the first 2 weeks, I will have lectures in this format, where I will have the lectures live on Zoom, and you will see this screen at the same time. You will be able to interact with me on the chat on Zoom, so if you have questions live, I will look at them on the chat and I will answer them. Then I will record the lectures like I am recording now, and you will be able to see these lectures on Canvas later. My slides, although I am proud of them, are not complete, and it's made by design. You will have to complete these slides by adding notes here and there if I add anecdotes or if I show a bit of math. In particular, once we'll be back in person, I will use the whiteboard or the blackboard in the classroom and maybe detail some computations so that you can see how the different steps work. These are particular steps that you will be required to perform during a midterm or the final, or maybe for some assignments. I will update everything on Canvas. I will post everything on Canvas. I will make announcements on a regular basis, and I hope that you already read my very first announcement. Pretty long, but given the circumstances, I had to make it long and very detailed. I will post announcements once, maybe twice a week on average, regarding different things. So, turn your notifications on and make sure you go through each of these announcements. Attendance in the course is never mandatory. You are taking a 300 level course. Some of you are about to graduate. You are adults. I don't see why I should force you to attend lectures or tutorials, so there will be no attendance or participation mark. I strongly advise you to come to tutorials and to the lectures because we will give you pieces of advice or some details that you will not see in the notes. But if you do not wish to come, you're free not to. Note that we will have a reading break from February 21st to February 27th. On that week, there will be no lecture and no tutorial. But don't skip on studying. Chances are that the midterm will be quickly after that week. Now, the grading scheme. You will have to complete 5 assignments. Each assignment represents 10% of the final grade. They will be done in R, and I will ask you to do a bit of coding every time. Sometimes you will find the answers directly in my lecture notes. Sometimes you will have to Google it yourself. It is part of your job as an adult to sometimes look for extra help on your own. Chances are that in your future job, there might be some things that you will not be able to perform, but you won't be able to send an email to your boss every other hour to ask exactly how a specific task is done. Maybe your colleagues will be busy with their own work. So in this case, you will have to do your own research work in order to do what you are asked to do. There will be a midterm exam in person, pen and paper, and that will represent 20% of the final grade. The final exam, same format as the midterm, a bit longer, will represent 30% of the final grade. Finally, the grade distribution will follow the SFU ECON undergraduate guideline. This is a link that you can click on and that will direct you to the SFU website regarding the letter distribution. In general, I try to design the assignments and exams so that if you have 50% overall, you should at least get a C-, a passing grade. This also means that if you don't manage to get 50% in the first assignments and on the midterm, it is time to reach out for help. Because chances are that the final exam will be harder than the midterm and the assignments, and so it might be more difficult to make up for these low grades thanks to the last assignments and the final exam. Quick note on cheating. Cheating is unacceptable in any form and will be heavily punished. The consequences at the university level can be big. That could go from an immediate fail in the course to sometimes being expelled from the whole university, in which case you will not be able to finish your degree and graduate. The procedure is simple. It consists in filling a form online, and it's relatively straightforward. I have gone through it before, so I strongly advise against any cheating attempt. You can also look at the academic dishonesty section on the university website to get more information. I would like to add a quick note on recommendation letters. Since I have been teaching a 300 level course for 5 semesters now, I often get asked to type a reference letter for graduate programs. Note or know that I am not a full professor. I am only a lecturer. This might not make a difference to you, but this will make a big difference for graduate programs when it's time for them to select their new master students. A recommendation letter from me does not weigh as much as one provided by a faculty member. The reason is that my position only consists in teaching. Full professors also have research duties. And as part of their duties, they get to talk to other professors, go to conferences, seminars, give talks, and their reputation also depends on their publications and their research work. When other professors will be looking at your application to their master's program, they will look at the name of the professors who wrote your recommendation letters. If it is somebody they know, then it will be a solid signal that the applicant profile is strong. Moreover, I only accept to type recommendation letters if you get at least A in the course and are able to communicate in English to some reasonable extent. The reason is the following. Most of the graduate programs ask references to not only post a letter in the form of a PDF file or a Word document, but also to fill a whole questionnaire and add comments about the applicant. Some of those questions are about how would you rate the applicant in terms of intellectual ability, analytical skills, quantitative skills, communication skills. And if you are not able to speak English to some extent, it will be difficult for me to rank you as the top 5%, top 10%, or to say you are very good. If you get B in the course, it will be difficult for me to say that you are an outstanding student, because in this case, you would get an A. So it will be difficult for me to make a strong recommendation letter if you do not satisfy these two requirements. And since I spend time making the best letter possible, I prefer to make sure that students who ask me for a recommendation letter at least fulfill these two requirements. In order for me to assess your level of English, we will have to have a conversation so I can assess that level. Remember that if you want a recommendation letter from a professor, the best thing is to talk to them, ask questions, ask for help throughout the semester. The better the professor knows you, the easier it is for him or her to write a strong recommendation letter. And this makes a big difference. Now, I will quickly go over the outline of the course, but I also want to go over it in a separate video. First, we will talk about probabilities, expectations, distributions. That should cover around 2 weeks. Among these two lectures, you will find some things that you have covered already in ECON 232, or maybe in some statistics courses. Some things might be a bit new, depending on your level, but I expect all of you to master these concepts before covering the rest of the course. Then I will talk about the law of large numbers, the central limit theorem, and I will talk about the concept of estimation and inference. That will be the statistics part. To understand it, you will need to understand the parts about probabilities, expectations, and distributions. Then I will get into the main topic of this course, linear regression. This is one of the most important concepts an econ undergraduate students should know before going on the labor market. With the linear regression, I will talk about the multivariate extension, which is relatively straightforward. And then I will cover a bunch of topics around these linear models. In particular, I will talk about the potential problems that we have encountered in economics that maybe statisticians did not encounter before. Finally, I will cover different topics depending on time and depending on your own tastes. I will send you a survey and ask you what you would like me to cover maybe for the last weeks of the course if time permits. I have 2 topics in mind, but maybe there are more. I have causal inference in mind, which is a topic covered in depth in another course. and machine learning. Now, how to study in the course. Learn definitions and theorems by heart. They will be explicitly shown on the notes, and I will sometimes ask you to talk about them in exams, assignments, or in the final exam. Come to office hours sooner rather than later. The sooner you come, the better it will be for you. You will make sure that you don't lag behind, that you do not accumulate concepts that you don't understand, because it will be very hard to keep following the course. And because of that, you should study on a regular basis. Go through the notes before or after the lecture. Go through the lecture, come to my lectures, go to tutorials, write something on the side, making sure that you understand everything. Maybe you can write a couple of questions and that you can ask later. Or you could take notes, extra notes on top of the lecture notes. Maybe because I talk about an anecdote, or I give an example, or I show some details on the board, something you could write down, some math. Concepts will eventually sink in. I know a lot of you might not like statistics. It might be difficult. But consistency is key. You need to eat this for breakfast every day, and eventually you will get used to it. If you look at what you know now in economics, I'm sure that you will never have guessed that you would learn all of that back in ECON 103 or 105. But after going through ECON courses one after the other, little by little, we, instructors, added some math, added some stats, added some complications, and now you are at a level far beyond what you could expect when starting ECON, I'm sure. If you cram before the midterm or the final exam, chances are you won't have the habits needed to succeed at the exam. Now, a last note I want to make about contacting me. Some students tend to contact me about the performance of the course at the end of the trimester. This will not help a lot. Two reasons. The first one is, if you only contact me at the end of the semester, I will not know you. I will not be able to track your progress. And maybe you did very bad before, and you will tell me that you've been making efforts. But I don't know if I don't see you or if I don't talk to you. And if you contact me at the end of the semester, that might be a bit late, because even a good grade in the final exam might not be able to make up for the low grades in the rest of the semester. So contact me, or us, TAs included, as soon as you are worried. If you get less than 50% on the midterm, it's a good time to start worrying. Okay, I mentioned that we will use a software in this course. So, we will use RStudio for statistics, data analysis, regressions, and so on. RStudio is the software that you will need to complete the assignments. I have a set of notes about the introduction to R, where I talk about the difference between RStudio, R, and R Markdown. I recommend you to bring your laptop during lectures. Sometimes I will run some R code directly on the screen. So what you could do is, on your own, go through the notes, type the same commands on your machine, and see if you get the exact same result. And if you don't, let me know. I can always help. You will encounter many errors working with R at the beginning. You might not like it. This is something that grows in you over time. It took me easily 3 to 4 years to start liking it. But I never really learned how to use it with someone in a course. And that made things way more difficult. Think of it as learning a language. In fact, this is what we call a computational language. But it is a language. You have to use specific words, specific sentences for R to perform the calculations that you want. to take the mean of a variable, to compute the variance, and so on, to make a graph, and so on. Learning a language as a beginning has a pretty steep learning curve. You learn a couple words, but you don't really know how to put them together, and you cannot communicate. And then, after practicing, you can put them together, make a whole sentence, and you can start conversing with people. Here, you will learn to converse with the software. At the beginning, you will learn a couple words here and there that will give you the basics. It's like saying hello, thank you, goodbye. And then eventually, you will know how to say, hey, make a graph with blue dots with a red line in the middle that says X at the bottom, Y at the top, and that has a label and a title. All of that you will learn with the proper commands. Now, is this class useful? Yes, it's actually one of the most useful courses of the degree. It might be in the top tier list of good returns to investment in a course. As I mentioned earlier, economics graduates are expected to have some data analysis skills in most jobs nowadays. They are asked to know about data manipulation, data analysis tools, regression methods, and so on. This knowledge of a statistical computing language can distinguish you from the rest of the pack. In fact, I say can, but I really want to say will distinguish you from the rest of the pack. Firms like Amazon, Google, Facebook, Spotify, WeWork, Wayfair, and many more recruit economists with an econ degree because we have specific skills that statisticians and computer scientists are not necessarily specialized in. Statisticians might know the theory very well. Computer scientists might know the coding very well. We are in between, and on top of that, we have some econ knowledge that help us answer very specific questions. Why do I mention these firms? Amazon, Google, Facebook, Spotify, WeWork, and Wayfair. Because I talked to each of these people. I went to a conference 3 years ago that consisted of graduate econ students looking for a job, and a bunch of presentations and conferences were given by economists working for these firms. I had an interview with WeWork, and actually I met another econ grad student from the US who had an interview with the same person. I have two friends who had an interview with Wayfair. I met a graduate student who works at Spotify, and she works on ways to improve the interface on Spotify to make people listen to more music. Amazon, Google, and Facebook also hire economists on a regular basis because we have these skills, these coding skills, these econ skills, and these stat skills that help us solve a very particular type of problems they need to be solved. Finally, I want to talk about the resources for the course. I do not like to make books mandatory, required, because they're expensive. Some of them you can find through the library in a PDF format. So I only recommend some books here, but you should not need to look at these books if you want to do well in the course. My lecture notes, the problem sets, going to lectures and tutorials should be enough. The first one is Introduction to Econometrics by James Stock and Mark Watson. This is a very standard econometrics book. You can pick any edition, doesn't have to be the last one. And I will reference which chapters are covered in each of my lectures. The next two books are books to learn how to use R properly. The first one, ISLR, is a great book that covers a bunch of different statistical concepts and shows how to implement them in R. That could be useful if you have an assignment, for instance. The last one, R for Data Science, is an online book, free. Oh, so is ISLR. Both are free. You can find them online. It is an online book, R for Data Science, which actually has been written with RStudio, because RStudio allows you to do a lot of things. This one is not about how to use statistical concepts necessarily, rather it's about how to manipulate your data, how to import a data set, how to export a data set, how to get a nice table, how to make a graph, how to sort your data, filter your data, compute the mean, compute the variance, change the name of a variable, deal with NAs, zeros, and so on. I really recommend you to take a look at this book, at least for the introduction, because it will give you an idea of how R works. That's it for this course organization video. I hope the quality is alright. I don't have the optimal equipment at disposal right now. I'm doing what I can, and hopefully you can understand, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.